Hey guys, it's Corbett Lunsford. Sorry I have not had one of these episodes come out for several weeks. I'm trying to get back up on all of my backlog. But we, as you may know, built the world's highest performance tiny house on wheels, left Chicago, went on the Proof is Possible tour around the country, talked with about 7,000 people, made the Home Diagnosis television show, which is coming out on PBS, hopefully in 2018. And now we're relocated to Atlanta, and I'm doing a lot of manual labor on my 3 acres of land that we're trying to build a bigger house on. So I'm a little short on time. I won't have many videos coming out probably, or more podcasts. I'm going to really try and stay on top of this. But 2 ways that you could interact with me if you'd like to learn more about all this stuff is, 1, we have a course called Home Performance for Tiny Spaces. That is about how we took the concepts of home performance control and put them into real life. As you know, I've never built a house before, and this house that I'm actually speaking to you from right now still works perfectly well. We still live here after a year and a half, and it does great. Second thing is I've got my 6-week mastermind distance course coming up again on September 16th. It's a 6-week distance on-demand course. You work at your own pace on your own schedule while you're doing the rest of your work in the home performance or construction or home improvement industry. And you can learn about both of those courses at buildingperformanceworkshop.com. I hope you enjoy this episode. It's one of my personal favorites with a great guy. Welcome to the Building Performance Podcast from the Building Performance Workshop on the Proof is Possible tour. Today we're talking about trends in high-performance building and retrofits with the legendary Hap Haven, who is one of the founding building scientists of our field. He is based in Philadelphia with U.S. Green Homes. Hap, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Oh, it's great. No, it's great to be here. And when you're talking about legends, it's funny because my formative years, we're going back to the 80s and Affordable Comfort in Pittsburgh. Okay, I remember that it was the second Affordable Comfort Conference, and I was in a hotel in Pittsburgh, and across the room, across the hallway, was John Tooley. Gary Nelson was 2 doors down in the same hallway, and it's like before happy hour, or maybe it was after happy hour, I don't know, but I was like, I come out of my room, okay, and there are these guys, the real founders, the real innovators, that have made such an important contribution on a national scale. They've got their manometers.
In the hotel. And
they're walking up and down the hallway, sticking the tubes into the guest rooms.
Right? This is before the age of terrorism. Nobody thinks like, oh, is that poisonous gas?
What is it? What are they doing? And I'm like following them, and we're walking down the hallway, and then we got to the elevator, right? And Gary Nelson takes a tube and sticks it, and I don't even really where it was in the elevator keyhole or somewhere in the elevator into the elevator shaft, and he's looking at the manometer. Now I know blower doors, I know manometers, but it's like the whole concept of just investigating. Just looking. What do I see? What do I see here? What do I see there? And he's sticking it in, and he's going, I've got a minus 15 pascals in this elevator shaft. They've got holes at the top of the elevator shaft. Just that concept of looking at something and physically going, what does that mean? What does that mean for comfort? What does that mean for the energy consumption? What does that mean for the safety of it? I mean, from that one test, he could tell that if there was a fire in this hotel in the elevator shaft, that there would be a problem. It's like this kind of just raw enthusiasm, for the science of it. And people go, science is so hard. Science includes math and all that. I'm like, no, this is a kid just looking at something and going, oh, I'm a kid in a stream, and I've got a little, mill that I've created out of popsicle sticks. Well, does the sticks go around 3 times every minute? Do they go around 4 times every? Oh, you know what? I can use that information and tell it how much water's going past it. I mean, it's really that simple. It's all about being excited about understanding how something works.
And I think really that's kids of a certain age too nowadays. Because older kids there's 2 things. I think number 1, we don't give ourselves time to play with the diagnostics equipment lately. It's all about like business and how are you going to make money with this. Yeah. So you do blower doors when you have to, for programs or for like testing, test out. And then also you have to be willing to look like an idiot, like I don't know what's going to happen. And I remember being a new guy in this industry, I'm like, I don't know. And I'd love to find out. But you have to have that willingness to show that, like, I don't know what's about to happen. So let's find out. And those two things
and what I've told students that have come along, throughout the years, it's like, when you first learn this stuff, okay, don't walk the house with the customer until you've walked the house 100% and understand how everything works. Because until you've done 100 houses and you have a fair sense of how houses work, because you've measured them and you kind of understand what to anticipate, it's like you don't want someone looking over your shoulder and you being stupid. Okay, now, stupid is in context here, right? Because you're not being stupid, you just don't know, but you don't want to show that to a customer.
Sure.
Okay, depending on the customer.
Also, doing and talking are two things, so we're not good multitaskers.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so if you go through the house and totally understand the house, okay, then you can sort of summarize the house for the homeowner, because nobody wants the long story. They want the short story. So if I've got the blower door running and I've got 5 rooms that don't leak very much, why do I want to bring the customer to those 5 rooms? I take them to the room that's really whistling. I stick their nose in the doorway and they go, oh my God. I always say this to people. It's like, I want the customer to say 2 things. Okay, either, oh my God, I always knew this room was so leaky, blah, blah, blah. Or, oh my God, I told my husband this. It's like, what I want is that customer to experience it. It's no different than taking a test drive of a car. If I'm buying a zippy little sports car, I don't want to take it into midtown traffic. What I want to do, and as a salesperson, okay, because a lot of home performance is all about sales, right? It's like, as a salesperson, I don't want to, dump you into a parking lot. I want to put you on the road where I can open it up a little bit. So as a home performance contractor, I want to show the customer the issues. I don't need to show a customer a heater that's working perfectly well. What I need to do is tell the customer, whenever I find any issues, I will bring you to that point. And that actually gets to using the right tools. I'm a big tool person. It's like, I don't care if you have a bazillion dollars, worth of tools. Okay, I only need my smoke stick to show spillage on a water heater. I don't need a whole lot of, I just need the right tool that's graphic. And the customer, and you say, all the fire that's in this water heater, it should all go up the flue, except the heat that you're extracting out of it. All the byproducts have to go up that flue into the outside. Take a look. And you stick the smoke stick there, and it's coming out in your face. And again, the customer says, "Oh my God, that's that's not supposed to be coming out. It's supposed to be going in, right?"
Yeah. I think also, though, it's not just the tools. I think that's something that's downplayed that people don't appreciate about someone like you, and that you, being somebody who has so much of it, doesn't necessarily think of that much, is technique. Because having the tool is one thing, but being able to apply it in a really elegant and efficient and meaningful way is something entirely different that only comes with experience and hands-on time with a trainer like you. So you and I have both taught classes for like just a few people. How do you, having done this for, how many years is it now? 30,
yeah.
Okay. So after 30 years or 35 years, how do you keep your enthusiasm for teaching up when you have a class of, like 4 people? When you step in and you're like, man, I'm happy. I've been around since 1981. I was on television, and I'd love for you to tell that story a bit, being on like, the evening news entertainment segment, basically, with this huge story in 1981. And, you're important. People should know this stuff.
So, first of all, you should never feel like you're that important.
I will try to keep my humility.
It's like, it's really, it's like they say in show business, you should never, believe your own press. What you have to do is be passionate about something, okay, and then just stick to that. Just stick to that, and everything will happen, because it's going to be frustrating. It's going to be frustrating along the way. So there was a point in my career, maybe 20 years ago, where I felt like I was really making inroads. And I know, I was selling through the weatherization program, tens of thousands of educational things across the country, and we were so amazing. Actually, this is a very humbling story, because I worked for a company in Philadelphia doing education, low-income education for 17 years. And we had education programs for the water department, for the electric program, for WAP, for everything. I mean, it was a very robust. I had educators around the city, that we worked with on a daily basis, that they were where the rubber met the road. They were talking to the customers, and I was training them, and they were, talking to the customers. And then I moved out of the nonprofit world, out of the low-income world into the for-profit world of doing solar installs and doing energy audits and stuff like that. And about 10 years later, I came back to the company that I worked with so long, and they had asked me to do a little something. And I said, well, I know a lot of these guys, they're still here. And I went down into the room, and I started talking to all these guys that have been actually out in the world doing this work for years. And I said, okay, tell me, what educational programs do you have in place right now, because I need to dovetail with that and sort of pick it up and move forward. And they looked at me and they said, we don't do education programs. And I went, what do you mean you don't do education programs? I said, I spent 17 years developing the most robust education programs in the country. Which I remember in the heyday of my WAP work, it was like in Philadelphia, we do typically more low-income weatherization jobs in a year in Philadelphia than most states do. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't do education? Oh, we just don't do that anymore. And
we did that already.
Well, it's very humbling. No, it was a question of, we know from studies that the educational work saves energy, saves money, makes the customer more, but we don't have time for it anymore. We're focused on just getting the work done. The program's been so pared down and so focused that we're just going to do that. If you want to feel insignificant, have 17 years of your life be pushed back in your face that, oh, all that great work you did, well, we don't do that anymore. And so anybody who's in the in any industry, it's like you can be doing good work, but it's never over. It constantly goes on, and you have to love the work for the work. You have to love the work for the outcome of that single spark. You're talking to the kid who suddenly goes, oh, that's what my teacher meant when they say blank. Or I can use the math I learned in math class to do this. Or you talk to the homeowner who says, oh my God, I told my husband this all the time. It's like, that's what you live for, is those little things where that not only have you made a difference, but it's going to stick.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is a personal conundrum that I am having, especially on this tour, is that you are such a passionate trainer of both professionals so that they can go and help people, and also you help actual people in their homes yourself. And to me, every time I help an actual homeowner and change their life, that is like a huge high. And whenever I train a contractor who's going to go and do the same thing, the high is not quite as intense. So how do you keep on, why don't you just huddle in your neighborhood and help all the people around you and get that, really make a difference for each of those people?
Well, it's fun. It's funny you should say that, because it's like I don't do direct service to residential customers, anymore. When someone calls me up, I usually refer them to a colleague, because so their business, moves forward. But I do things for people, okay, just for free. It's like I had a woman in town who is in Philadelphia who is a social activist. And we were talking about something that she was doing, and I just went over, and said, well, you need to do this, 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 and this, and just basically opened up her world so that she could see what she needed to, to do. Boy, that is rewarding. And she will remember it, she will move forward with it, and stuff like that. So when it comes to the contractor, what you want is that kind of commitment, that kind of excitement.
The oh my God moment.
Yeah. And the only way you do it with the contractor is by taking the tools and sticking it in their hands and have them actually, experience. It's no different than a homeowner. Get them out of their contractor mode, get them into the homeowner, I'm experiencing it mode, right? When you take the pressure pan is probably the least useful tool in my toolkit, okay? And because there's so many erroneous bits of information it can give you.
Ooh.
But it's a great sales tool in a home. And it's great to show a contractor how to use the pressure pan to get that customer to buy into the whole, the whole thing. Well, we're going to do the home performance, solution here, not the heating, solution. Okay, and here's one thing. It's like I can go to a knee wall and take a pressure pan with the blower door running and get an astronomical reading off of a receptacle into a knee wall, and we all know why.
Sure.
Right? There's no back of the wall. There's no back of the wall to the knee wall. On the inside wall, unless the wall cavity is totally open, I'm going to get a dramatically better reading on that, right? So whether it's the homeowner or whether it's the contractor, I can take them to that inside wall and say, look, I want a reading on this pressure pan of 1, 2, something really low, right? And if it's more than that, it's showing us we have some sort of issue. Okay, now put it on that receptacle on this wall. Yeah, okay, it's 5. Not great, but hey, we can solve that problem really easy because we're going to do air sealing in the attic. Okay, put it over here on the knee wall. 35. Oh my God. Okay, it's a tool. It's in the contractor's hands. They're seeing that the number is huge. Now, I don't need that tool to tell me that. We all know how knee walls are built. We all know what they don't have on the backside. It's like we just don't need these tools, to tell me that. Okay, but from a contractor or a homeowner standpoint of seeing the difference, holding it, looking at it, going, wow, that's a huge difference.
The preponderance of evidence suddenly.
Yeah.
Not just an opinion from a contractor.
That's right. Don't even get me started on opinions from contractors. Because how many contractors have come to your house and said, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 20 years. and the last contractor that came to my house was installing a cork floor. No, it was a linoleum floor, okay, in my basement, okay. And he was telling me about how he was going to install it. And we got halfway through the process, and he said that to me.
Uh-oh.
And I said straight to his face, I don't want to hear your bullshit. Okay, what you've been doing is you've been doing it wrong for 20 years. And this is how I want you to do it. And if you're not going to do it this way, you're leaving the house. In other words, shut up and do it right. Okay, but he didn't know how to do it right because he had only used the materials that his daddy had shown him and his daddy had shown him, but he had no knowledge of like moisture transfer through the slab. It's like I'm not putting this linoleum floor on a concrete slab in a basement, okay, without using a penetrating masonry sealer on that concrete before I installed the floor.
Plastic, yeah.
It's like I'm not that. Linoleum breathes. This is not fake linoleum. This is the real linoleum.
Gotcha.
But I need to understand moisture transfer through the concrete slab. And I'd measured the moisture in my slab. Okay, so I knew what the moisture. He didn't know what the moisture was. He never used any tools to measure that. He's just going to slop the shit on and go with it. I'm like, look, you may be a great installer, but we're going to do my way. Okay, and then you can finish it how you want to finish it. When I first came to Philadelphia. Okay, what I said was, Philadelphia's not that bad. If we have a generation come and go, like the old generation die off, it's like it'll be a great town. And I was younger. I was coming here for graduate school, and but Philadelphia still is a backwater town in a lot of ways, because what happens is, the father, the son, the mother, the daughter, the whatever. It's like apples don't fall far from the tree. And you learn this, and this is true in contracting. You learn it from, it's the apprenticeship. I learn it from the guy who knows how to do it. But that's the best way to perpetuate mistakes. It's a great way of training people, but it's also a great way of perpetuating mistakes. So if I frame the house this way, well, guess what? you're wasting 30% of your lumber. It's like we can frame a house 24 on center, and we can stack the framing, and we can do all the things that we would consider modern framing. But how many houses are out there being stick built using modern framing techniques, even though it's been around for years and years and years? Well, that's only because the old way of framing is embedded, because I did it this way, and I'm teaching you, and you're going to teach the next person and the next person. Okay, and that's what happened. It happened in Philadelphia. I mean, Philadelphia is, a parochial town of parochial neighborhoods. It's like, we sent our daughter to a school in South Philadelphia, which was great. Okay, except she knew friends in South Philadelphia that wouldn't leave the neighborhood to come to a party at our house in Germantown because, oh my God, we live in a neighborhood across town. That's parochial.
Yeah. So Philadelphia is essentially like a small prism of the construction industry, where the electricians and the plumbers and the framers, and they all have their own ways, and they don't talk to each other very much, and that's interesting.
It's changing, but when people say, I'm feeling like I'm not making an effect, I'm not creating a change here. Well, you are. It's just very slow. And I talked to you earlier on about the granny gear. If you bike at all, you know that there's a very small sprocket that you use when you're going up very steep hills. It's called the granny gear. And you're going around and round and round and round, around, and you're not moving very much. Okay, well, that's the way the world works. And that is, you can train for the next 5 years, but you're working the granny gear. It's like the industry is enormous. That's why I always joke about BPI and about, BPI being, and other training organizations like that being the granny gear. It's like the tail wagging the dog. The HVAC industry is the dog, and BPI is the tip of the tail. And we're trying to wag the dog. And it's not until you start making inroads and alliances, at ACA, and other organizations that are trade organizations, and you start educating them how you can actually do this better, smarter, faster. It's like the $1 Million Man, kind of thing. It's like we can do this, make more money at it, and have safer homes, more comfortable homes, and all that. But the HVAC industry is an enormous industry, and we're on the little gear going round and round and round and round and round and round and round, and then the industry turns one click.
Yeah. And the home improvement industry is huge.
Same.
And the construction industry is huge. And the American populace of homeowners is huge. I think what's interesting, as somebody who came in 2008, long after you knew all of this stuff, is that in 2008 they started talking about the ratings becoming law, and like, it's on Capitol Hill now, we're going to have the SAVE Act and all this stuff. And every year it was like, everybody get really excited, like, it's going to happen. Yeah. And it never happened. And of course, you've been through that before, like, this is not going to happen. And ACA and the National Association of Realtors and all the giant organizations that are themselves trying to get people to join their movements also have, like, ACA has the quality installation standard for this is how you install an air conditioner and a furnace. And it doesn't get followed, and they have their own. So that's what's hilarious to me, is that, like, ACA is a much bigger organization than you and I are a part of.
Yeah.
And they can't even get the thing moving that fast. So they're also on a granny gear. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a good way of not getting your feelings hurt when you're talking about this stuff nonstop. And by the way, everybody who's listening, keep talking about it, because that's the secret, is you got to learn how to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If the more customers that we educate, the more demand there will be to do it right. So that's a real important part of the of the equation. But you talk about big wheels to turn. The federal government has made huge difference. The military has made huge differences over the years. But I've been through this long enough. It's like I first got into this in the end of the 70s. I was a volunteer at the second National Passive Solar Conference, and I think it was either the end of 78 or beginning of 79. But it's like we were all like going. I mean, Jimmy Carter had made such a huge difference. He put solar panels on the White House, even though it's bullshit. It's like he's showing the country that, hey, this is a possibility. And I described this. I haven't used this analogy for a while, but back in the 70s, everybody understood that we were going down the wrong path. Amory Lovins, and all these other great research people and authors and everything had written books. It's like, we can't pollute ourselves to death. We can't use energy until the cows come home. We can't use our natural resources, forever. So we have to work smarter, rather than harder, all that, all that sort of stuff. And in the 70s, it's like we got religion, and I describe that as being everybody in the world that was like a developing country or a developed country got on an ocean liner and set sail for the golden sunset, or the sunrise, or however you want to spin the analogy. But we're steaming along, okay? And then in 1980, okay, we got off the ship. Okay, the whole rest of the world, like in Europe, kept going, okay? But we got off the ship onto, like, the lifeboats and came ashore. Because in 1980, Ronald Reagan came into office and said, hey, we don't need alternative energy, we don't need conservation. And he took the solar panels off the White House, it's just a symbol. But he took it off, basically telling the American people that this stuff doesn't work. This stuff is not what we want to do, and then shifted our focus back to fossil fuels. Well, what he did in that single action, and all the organizations that were up in place in the national SERI, the Solar Energy Research Institute, it all collapsed in the 80s because of that leadership or lack of leadership. Well, you know where that solar panel is right now? It's in a museum in China, because the Chinese people know that they cannot perpetuate the growth that they need to keep their people alive and functioning and the economy growing on fossil fuels. Are they using coal in a big way? Yeah. Are they polluting their cities in a big way? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, but they know that they can't do that, and so they're the single largest installer of solar hot water and solar electric than anybody. In the world, because they're on that ship. They know that fossil fuel is only a bridge fuel, and we've seen this throughout our history, right? I mean, we used to burn wood, right, and then we basically cut down all the forests in Europe, and suddenly everyone was like, "Oh shit, what do we do?" Well, coal, oil, came into play, and we've been just, substituting fossil fuels ever since. But it's like the year of the fossil fuel has to be over. We have to make the transition. What I say to miners in Tennessee is, you're mining, great. Don't have your children mine. Yeah, it's really simple as this, because it's going to come to a time where your company closes down. Right? And you're going to sit there screaming, oh, we need help. No, the transition is now. Have the children, go find another way, like clean energy, to help out. It's like we need to all the... I love the electric companies. I love the power companies. I love all these big institutions, because they've gotten us to where we are today. But everyone has to make that moral decision. What now? What do I do now? And what I do now is I need to find alternatives. I need to use less, and I need to use renewable, energy. Okay, but we can get ourselves into a bind if we don't do it smart. Okay, and I'll give you an example. There's a woman downtown who's a dear friend of mine who's been a social activist for ages, and she has a $1 million house downtown in Philadelphia. Okay, a row house. Okay, that's in the right neighborhood, that is gorgeous and everything. And 6 years ago, when I talked to her, she was in the middle of doing a gut rehab. And she called me in because she knows I was the local energy expert. So I talked to her. I walked her through their house. Do this, do this, do this, do this. These are the things that you need to be doing. I went there this year, 6 years after the fact. She called me up. She says, you know what? Out of principle, I got rid of all my gas appliances, and I'm now all electric, and I have solar electric up on the roof. So I'm trying to make that movement into the next century. I'm trying to be good about it. I'm trying to be that person who can say, yes, I'm doing it, but the problem is my house is getting cold in between heating cycles and da-da-da-da-da. And so we went and did just a quick analysis of the house, a blower door, an infrared scan, and I'm like, well, what did your contractor do? Because your contractor sure as heck didn't insulate or not insulate, air seal this house.
Any of the things that you told her to do. Well, yeah.
Right. And so what happened was she took the message of what should be done, gave it to a contractor who knew nothing about that, didn't understand what to do with that, and just did business as usual. Now, we all know, that we need to understand how many air changes per hour go through the house when the blower door's on. And I think yours is like 1.5 or something?
1.3, yeah.
1.3, yeah. And mine's like 3.2 or 3.5 or something like that. Okay, and what I consider is anything over 5 air changes per hour is a leaky house. I don't know where you fall in on that.
Sure.
Passive solar house, a passive house, I think their air changes per hour at CFM 50 is like 0.5 or something. It's very low, right?
Well, they have a new CFM per square foot of area, which is nicer.
Yeah, it makes better. And you can do it for the volume of the house, you can do the square footage of the house, you can look at that, but there's a number that you can look at, right? And her house was 17 air changes per hour. And I'm like saying to this woman, this contractor, they must have been punching holes in the walls, okay? And because we can see the air leakage and we can measure the air leakage around the clock. You can't make this transition from here and now to the future without doing it in a measured way. And I mean measured literally, right? We need to do it with the instruments. We need to air seal and prove that this is your stick, prove that we achieved that. We need to install the heating system and prove that the ducts are tight. We need to install the heating system and guarantee that I have so many CFM in that room because it called for that. It's like these are the things that that we need to do.
Because people don't realize that proof is possible. They go for the sexy stuff, which is they heard a soundbite about all electric or solar. Yeah, and so they're like,
we can do
that one thing in.
Yeah, but you can't do that without doing the other work. The other work first, right? And so we have an opportunity with this friend of mine. I have an opportunity to educate the contractors that she's working with. That's the key thing. Yeah. But you were asking about when I first got into business. I ran an energy model home from 1981 to 1986, and then another one in the 90s, and another one in the 2000s. And the model home was on the evening news. And it wasn't the evening news.
Can you hold for 1 second? Grace, what? Yes?
Stacy is here to record the podcast.
Tell her that I'm in the middle of my own, and I'll be with you guys in 10, 15 minutes.
I just wanted to check. I didn't know if you were still just doing.
No, we're still recording.
We're still doing here.
All right.
So, but we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Can you go back to?
Yeah. When I moved to Philadelphia, it was in 1976, and then eventually opened my energy model home in 1981. It's like we were doing mostly school kids. They were coming through in classes of 33, and I think we had every school in the entire city come through and tour the model home and everything like that. And it was a wonderful thing to do because, and this is funny, in fourth grade, okay, so that's like 10-year-olds, right, where they had a science curriculum that was called Systems, Subsystems, and Variables.
What?
And you think subsystems, system, variable, it's like, how can you teach that?
That's awesome.
But we taught it very simply. Science can be either presented as if it's some ivory castle thing, or it can be done very, simply. What we did is we had one of the kids, we always met in the classroom first. One kid brought in their bicycle. And we had a bicycle. These are 10-year-olds. They all ride bicycles. Okay, we had the bicycle in front of the classroom. And we said, okay, can you guys describe all the parts on this? And we listed every single part from the valve stem to the sprockets to the handlebars on the board. And then, this was a chalkboard, right? And then on the chalkboard, we would say, all right, now, are there any of these parts that you actually use together at this, for a reason? And people would say, well, okay, the handlebars. I got grips, and I got the handlebars, and the handlebars attached to the stem, and the stem's connected to the front wheel. That's how I steer the bike. These are 10-year-olds that understand what a system is, the bicycle, and what a subsystem is, the steering system to the bicycle. So you can take almost anything in life and break it apart into its constituent parts and how it works. And then we just take that thinking and go to a house and say, well, what are all the parts of the house? And we just list all the parts of the house. And then we'd say, well, what does what job? And then we start organizing it that way. So that's when we started teaching people about home systems and subsystems and variables in those systems, and how and how when you made an improvement in one system, it had an effect on another system, and so that's where the sort of system, house as a system, sort of evolved.
That should be like a homeowner prerequisite class.
Well, it should definitely come with your homeowner's warranty and your homeowner's booklet that tells you everything that's going on in the house, and that is great stuff. Anyway, after about a year of doing these things, we also gave workshops to people at the Franklin Institute and the Academy of Natural Sciences, and we sort of drilled down in onto the people, the adults of Philadelphia. In order to do that, we did outreach, and one of the we had radio, we had television, we had stuff like that, and we had news stations come. We used to do solar car washes for the police every Saturday morning. We had an after-school club. And we put out our homemade solar water heaters made out of plywood, plastic, and garden hose. And we would wash fire trucks and police cars for free Saturday morning. All right, but it's all about education. It's all about, and the kids were having a great time doing this. The kids that were part of the club. But I distinctly remember a like a 7 o'clock TV show, that reached like 2 million people in the Delaware Valley, and they did a remote broadcast from our house, and in between the shows they would come back to the house and we would do one little thing, and then they'd go off to their segment, do the segment, and then they'd come back, and then the host of the show would do another little segment, and so we had millions of people looking at this, and I just thought, oh, I have made it. I've made it. I've broken the barrier, and out there to the world, and I'm going to be reaching all these people. And I got no phone calls the next day, not one. Even though repeatedly, like after every segment, there's like 4 segments on the program, my telephone number was given out. Okay, no internet, right? Well, we were running an electronic bulletin board. Which was the precursor to the internet, right? So we were like one of the only people in the entire city that had a dedicated electronic bulletin board. Anyway, no one called. That was humbling. What that told me was...
Humbling or heartbreaking?
No, humbling.
Okay.
It's like, if I'm heartbroken, I tuck my tail and I go away. Humbling just is like, okay, I don't understand how it works. That I can put that message out there and it's not necessarily going to come back the way I want it to come back. Right? That's the time to sort of double down and realize that most people you're going to reach is not through that way. Unless you're doing like a show, you're going to be doing your home diagnostic show. If that's picked up by PBS and it gets a following, that's traction that the industry needs. That's really, really critical. Yeah. And I can't tell you the number of times we've tried to do something like that and it just hasn't worked, in the past. But hopefully now's the time. And hopefully now you're the person, to make that happen. Okay. But for me, that was just very humbling, saying, I don't really understand. I know how houses work, but I guess I don't understand how media works. And I sure as heck don't know how the people watching this show work, because I didn't say the whatever that was, the thing that got them. I wasn't sexy enough. I was too scientific. I was whatever I was. But this goes back to your question earlier on. Is like, how do you stay focused on this over so many years? Well, you have to have a passion for it. You have to love it. Okay, and then you have to be committed in the long term that something is going to change. And I have seen change. I mean, home performance is the biggest industry no one's ever heard of. It's like a $4 billion industry. Okay, but compare that to, the whatever $10 trillion industry that HVAC companies represent. It's like we're very small, but we're making inroads. That's the key thing. It's like change happens. It can happen in a flash, but it only happens in a flash after you've done all of that due diligence. all of that additional work, all the work that we've done over the last 30 years.
Well, it is so inspiring to see someone who's been at it for so long still so excited, and it's clear that you still love what you do. So I'm really excited to get to that point myself.
Thank you so much for letting me talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Hap. Hap Haven is the founder of U.S. Green Home, based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You have been listening to the Building Performance Podcast. Tune in next time.